Hello and welcome to Common Ground, an inside look at Suffolk County. I'm your host, Seth McCoy. We have a great show for you tonight. On the first half of the show, we have Carol Montgomery, the Executive Director of the Roxbury Multi-Service Center, and Carmen Santos, their Youth Program Director. Roxbury Multi-Service Center was founded in 1964, and throughout their 50-year history, they have balanced addressing issues of national concern, including homelessness, education, mental health, and urban revitalization. And on the second half of the show, we will introduce you to Jerome Smith, Director of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services for the City of Boston. Boston Mayor Marty Walsh just recently appointed Jerome to the director position in April of this year. In addition to oversight of the Office of Neighborhood Services, Jerome will also serve as Mayor Walsh's advisor to various efforts to preserve and enhance the quality of neighborhoods, develop and administer neighborhood partnership activities, and resolve problems related to code enforcement. Definitely a full plate. Stay tuned for a great show. And joining me now is Jerome Smith, Director of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services for the City of Boston. Jerome, I'm so excited to have you here. One, because we know each other outside of our professional lives, but also because, like you, I used to be a neighborhood coordinator in the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. Obviously, I was not in the Walsh administration. Like you, we both worked for the former mayor, Mayor Menino. So when you were appointed by Mayor Walsh to this position, I was so excited. I think I called you right away.
You did. You were one of the first.
Yes. So again, congratulations.
Thank you.
But tell people at home who may not be familiar with neighborhood services what neighborhood services is and what the goal is.
Yeah. Well, neighborhood services, it's a lot of people think of it as just constituent services, but so we do a lot. Every neighborhood has its own coordinator, and there's 6 liaisons who cover various, different communities. But our main thing is to encourage and facilitate, community input on a lot of different programs and development and issues, and work with neighborhood associations, but also to try and we're doing some more things. We're trying to get more civic engagement. So we're trying to engage residents outside of neighborhood associations to try and get them more involved. So, a lot of our time, the coordinators learn, time management. They work late hours, as you know.
Yes,
they learn conflict resolution.
As we know, yes.
We're put in the middle of two competing interests, and we try to find a compromise on how to get to yes. So, as you know, it's kind of like you hit the ground running, and then the emergency response. Like today in East Boston, we had the fire, the 6-alarm fire.
Right.
So I responded along with our East Boston coordinator, and we were there on scene. Taking care of individuals who were displaced, getting the Red Cross involved and things like that.
So you're talking about fires, and that's something I think that most people at home in the city of Boston don't realize, that this is some of the things that the neighborhood coordinators do. I remember going to a flood, certainly a lot of fires, all hours of the night. And that's, I think, something that is overlooked a lot of times, especially when these young coordinators are out every single day. I mean, it really is 24/7, 365 days.
Yeah, besides the mayor's 4500 hotline, which is 24 hours a day for access, the coordinators are also there. So they're in the office 9 to 5 if they're in the office and not in the community. But at 5 o'clock, most individuals are happy to punch out and go home. The coordinators, they'll grab something real quick to eat, but then they're off to their neighborhood association meetings, and they may have like 2 or 3 of those in the night, so they may not get home until 10, but then their phones are on. So if there is a fire late night, we respond to every fire, every water main break, any major issue. The coordinators are actually there to respond and help assist people and coordinate with the Red Cross and other things to make sure that people are settled.
Right, absolutely. It was probably one of the best jobs I've ever had. I don't know if you feel the same way.
You learn so much in a very short period of time when you first start as a coordinator. And one of the exciting things about me when I was a coordinator, I did the South End and Bay Village, was you get to meet so many amazing people. You know the business owner who just opens up because you help them get their permits and you help them introduce them to the neighborhood, and then you see the business grow, and you get to sit with the community and decide what they want in their neighborhood, whether it's development or a new park. So there's a lot of positives that go along with also the fires and some of the other things that you have to deal with.
Now that you're director, you're probably bringing a little bit of your own elements to the job and sort of directing the staff to do things a little differently. What are some of the things that you're looking at them to do You know, you obviously mentioned that the role has expanded a little bit. It's not just about constituent services. So what sort of things are you having them do at your direction?
You know, it's a good point because, you know, Seth, us being there, we got to actually experience what a coordinator goes through. So one of my first meetings with them is that I understand what you do on a day-to-day basis. And I was excited that Mayor Walsh actually wants to rebrand, kind of rethink about how we actually provide it through neighbor services. So we want to do more civic engagement. So I push them that besides, you know, just going to the neighborhood associations, which are, you know, professional citizens who are like very engaged. They're already engaged.
Right.
So how do we get the other residents who may not be so engaged? So one of the other things that we're doing is a butters meetings, something new. Where normally some places would have a butters meeting, now all the coordinators have butters meetings separate of the neighborhood association meeting. And that is just to kind of get the individuals who are directly impacted, who may not want to be part of a neighborhood association. That's within their right. But get them out of their home, take ownership of what's going on their street, and trying to talk to them. Because once you get them engaged, say, on a development, they're going to be energized to continue to call you and start, you know, paying attention to other issues that are going on.
Absolutely, because a lot of times in the past, you know, you'd go and you'd flyer different neighborhoods or try to get the word out in other ways, but you might not target the person who's living right next door to where that new home is going or that new business is going in. So I think that's great and very innovative that that's the mission, to get there and really engage other people. And it's great that we have all of these neighborhood associations and all of these people are so active in the different communities, but to really branch out and get a whole new pool of people who might bring great ideas to the table.
Yeah, and you know, and some residents, you know, they may not have the time to go to a nightly meeting to be part of the neighbor association, and that's their right. But you know, we also feel that every individual should be able to engage their government, and so this is a way that we're actually coming out and saying, come on out.
Well, and I've got to tell you, so I live on Fort Hill, so I'm in Roxbury, and Kyra, who's a new coordinator, is fantastic. So that's my little plug for Kyra, because she went out there and she put out an email to the Highland Neighborhood Blast, and bless her soul, because a lot of people were like, you know, they kind of jumped on her, and I understand, you know, things haven't happened in the neighborhood that people wished had happened, but she was looking for new information, new ideas, and she is so responsive. And it's so nice, not to say that the previous coordinator wasn't, but she's so proactive. And I really think that's, you know, obviously because she's new, but also because you're in there and Mayor Walsh is there directing sort of how neighborhood coordinators should be engaging with the residents.
Kyra's great, and you know, she started a week before I started, so we were both in there relatively
at the
new.
Same time.
But she came in, and so the reason, and I know that about that email because she got a slew of ideas, and you and I actually talked about some of those out when I saw you in City Hall. I've challenged each of the coordinators because they're also, a lot of them are young and new. There are some who have been there, who were there with Menino, and they stayed on because they're great coordinators who want to continue to doing their work. But the new ones are so engaged, so I wanted to teach them. So what I did was I brought them all in and I said, all right, we're going to do dream projects. In a year or two, if you can think of a project that you want to do, think of something that's yours. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you start in the very beginning, and from the beginning and walk it to the very end to maybe a ribbon cutting or something, so that you can see all the steps and what it takes to actually do something. And so she sent out the email for dream projects, and she got a list of dream projects.
Yes, she did.
Yes, she did.
Some of them maybe not such, you know, worthy of a big dream. There's things that need to be resolved, but there were some great ideas in there, so that was great.
And she's going to sit now and try to see how we can trigger and start some of those things. But she learned firsthand that I was like, well, that's step one. What is the level of commitment in the community to want these things?
Right.
And she sat there and she did a little checklist to see who wanted what, and she came back and she was impressed about how engaged the neighborhood was with her dream.
It is a
coming
very
with the dream
engaged neighborhood,
project.
so that's really, it's, you know, props to Roxbury, Fort Hill. And, you know, I think it's great too that you mentioned having them see a project from literally the start to the finish, because that's another thing that I look at when I go around the city, and there's a couple parks or a building that I can look at and say, I was part of that whole process from when that park was set to be, you know, revitalized, or that building was set to be built, and then to be able to walk by them and be like, you know, that building is that height because I put my 2 cents in and the mayor agreed with me.
Yeah, there's a little pocket park in the South End, and whenever, you know, I live in Dorchester now, but whenever I'm back in the South End visiting, I just walk past a little pocket park, and I remember that it took me a year and a half of just conversations and meeting to get this little pocket park redone. But now you see all these kids running all over it, and you kind of have a little sense of confidence, like, I did that.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a couple years ago, but I did that. So
Exactly.
it's kind of
But
exciting.
the job is not without its challenges.
No.
So what are some of the challenges that coordinators face?
I would say that, you know, some of the challenges they face is, you know, the hours that they work. It's just, it's 24 hours a day, all weekend long. You know, they could do events with the mayor. When he's out in the neighborhoods, they're there. Fires. I mean, it's constant being out there and engaging residents. And, you know, there's so many things that, you know, people want to see have done in their neighborhoods. And another thing is, and it's difficult for them sometimes, is that they have to manage expectations.
Right.
Everybody, not everybody, but there are people who just really need the city to help them, and there's just limits to what the city actually can do. And we try to do a lot of private-public partnerships and things like that to try to get some of these things accomplished. So, you know, it's just, sometimes there's issues that they come to me, and you just see that in their face that they really want to help.
Right.
And we just know that looking, like, forecasting the budgets and things like that, that there might be only a little bit we can do. And so we try to reach outside to nonprofits and others to try and supplement to get some of the stuff done. So
yeah, and that's probably the biggest thing too, is that people don't see the behind the scenes where, you know, a neighborhood group might say, or a community might say, oh, we want a park, or we want this revitalized. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into making that happen, whether it's a dog park or revitalizing a playground for kids. It's not just, oh yes, we can do that, let's sign the check and get it done. A whole process has to be performed.
and just like you said, dog parks, let's just use that as an example. It's a very labor intensive process. Right. So you get a group of concerned residents that say, we want a dog park, we're willing to fundraise and help out, and you know, for us, it's great, but then when you actually look at how you start the process, you have to get plans designed, and then because there's animal waste, you have to, certain materials have to be used, and then you have to go out in the community and say, hey, I'm bringing a dog park here, and then you get those residents who don't want dogs barking at all hours. So you walk through all of that, and then the financing and the money, and the city can put it on its capital. So residents often, they just call and say, you know, we should do this, and we really want to help, and when you actually explain to them, this is how long it actually takes to get something like that accomplished. It gets a little frustrating, and so our job is to kind of explain to them the process so they have a better understanding, to kind of lessen that frustration a little bit, and also engage them. So, you know, same thing, they feel ownership. I started this, look at this dog park, and then once the dog park's built, they have a friends of the dog park, and then there's fundraising and activity and all that stuff.
And in some neighborhoods, it's a little easier to get something like a dog park done, because there might already be open space that they could perhaps gain ownership of, or you know, so there are different ways to shorten that time frame. But for most projects, it does take a long time.
Take a little time.
Yeah. So then, when people start complaining, how come this hasn't happened yet? We asked for this 2 years ago. It's not that it won't happen. It's just that things
are
still
in the
have
queue.
to be right. Exactly. And it's, you know,
and
everything has to be planned.
Exactly. And what you have to realize is that there's probably been 20, 30 phone calls about various other projects, and they just shuffle through the list of priorities, and then that phone call comes in, and you know, we really need to get this done, and you'll see that there's like 14, 15 things ahead of it, and it's very hard to jump it, and then that's why managing expectations, I say, was one of the toughest things for the coordinators to kind of actually go out there.
Also going out to community office hours, the neighborhood coordinators. So talk a little bit about that. So
it's another way for us to show some of the FaceTime with your neighborhood coordinator, because more often than not, you're either emailing them or you get them on the phone, but we also want to get them out into the neighborhood. So they'll post on the city website, we'll post office hours. We also have an electronic notification system. We call it the ENS system.
I love it.
We're changing it a little bit. We're going to call them the neighborhood newsletters. So you'll be seeing a new kind of rebranding from Neighbor Service, so it won't be that static, here's your licensing board and ZBA notices. It'll be a newsletter. You'll get a picture of who your coordinator is, a little bio on them, and then they'll put links to like tons of neighbor stuff. It's not just going to be city programming now. We're actually going to open it up to actually kind of help neighborhood organizations post, like if you're having a block party, if you're having a summer event, we're trying to advertise and get more residents, because we're trying to build sense of community out there.
And that's awesome. If I remember the email correctly, it was you could actually choose more than one neighborhood. So like I said, I live in Roxbury. I only chose Roxbury as where I wanted notification from, but I could have said, I'd like to know what's happening in Hyde Park or East Boston.
Yeah, you can click the whole city, and you can even get issue specific on departments, what departments put out messages. So if you just go on, cityboston.gov/neighborhoods, it lists all the neighborhoods there. It also lists how to get a hold of your neighbor coordinators, and also the electronic notification system where you can select the updates that you want to get from the city.
See, that's great. What is something, just backtracking a little bit from when you were a coordinator, what's one story that you would you think of often about your time as a coordinator?
There's been a lot. There's one big mistake was my first dealing with the press. I 23 years old, all excited, reporter called, had no concept of, going through proper channels. And
well, it was done differently, though.
It was done differently.
We didn't have to do the whole clearance to the press office.
Yeah, and so, I just picked up his phone, neighborhood services, reporters on around asked me questions, and here I am in my mode of being helpful, and I'm just being helpful. And next, there's this news story, and everybody's playing catch up after the fact. And so I learned pretty quickly that I have to, that it was my one moment being like, oh my God, this is actually real. Yeah. And then so you just kind of get better at it, and they gave you training, and I was able to talk to like the local papers and do things a little bit more. The other stuff that I work on, when I was coordinator for the South End, we had a lot of development in the South End.
Yeah.
The Atelier building was being built, the old police headquarters, all those. So I learned a lot about FAR and
more
the
than
process.
You want to know.
I'd sit in, when I first remember, I'd sit in some meetings, and the developers are in there and they're talking all in code, and the BRA project manager knows, and they were all exchanging, and I'm sitting there feverishly writing notes and writing down words to look up afterwards. And but I would say that I learned a lot about community process, engaging, trying to get to yes. More often than not, that was our role, to try and get to yes.
One of my favorite books, by the way.
Yeah.
Getting to yes.
Getting to yes. It's not always easy.
No,
and
it's not.
Sometimes it's really painful.
Yes, indeed.
But it's actually good when both sides can actually walk away and smile and think that they actually did something good for the neighborhood.
Yeah, because it is a challenge when you have a neighborhood group, and some of the groups, most of them, if not all of them, are very, very vocal. So when you hear them on the other end of the phone, or you're face to face with them, and they're yelling and screaming about, Mayor doesn't care about me because this is happening X, Y, and Z, to actually be able to work it so that they are finally comfortable with what's happening, and let's say a developer is happy with what he or she is doing, you can walk away saying, I did my job, I did right by the people, I did right by the developer, I did right for the city and for the mayor. So.
And that a lot of those tense situations pop in is because the residents care. It's the only reason why they're there and they're active is because they care. And so a lot of the time they want to be heard, and they want to be acknowledged that they're being heard. So, a bystander may go to a neighborhood meeting one night and just see this whole kind of display, and then be kind of scared away from attending a meeting like that. But what they need to take away from is that this is how you engage. It's the very first step. That community meeting is always the first step, and sometimes it's really messy. But what happens is that a lot of conversations happen after the fact. We talk with the residents, we engage them, there's messages going back and forth with residents about their concerns. If it's a development project, we'll talk to the developer and say, hey, Mrs. Clancy over here, the windows look into her house, and then that dialogue, and then trust happens. And then that moment that the residents actually trust the issue or the program or the project that's coming through, things move a lot smoother, and that's how. But the first meeting is always a surprise.
Yes,
so
indeed.
Never base how everything goes based on the first meeting.
No, definitely not. And also, it's not just about development or liquor licenses. There are also some serious issues that come up at these meetings. That was one of the things that I always think about so I had District 8, so it goes from Beacon Hill to Mission Hill. So I would go to a meeting in Beacon Hill, and they'd be talking about flower plants, and somebody shouldn't be putting them out. And then I go to Mission Hill, and they'd be talking about a kid who was shot. So it's also, especially for the coordinators, is learning how to balance that sort of the expectations, as you mentioned earlier, of people in some communities versus what really needs to be happening in other communities in terms of focus and making sure that everybody feels safe in their home, in their neighborhood.
And you're right, and it's a tough balance, because that issue to that resident in Beacon Hill about those lanterns is very important to them, and they're a resident, and that's it's a very important issue, and we should give it just as much credence as the individuals in Mission Hill. But it is tough, and that's what I always say to the coordinators. I'm like, you do have to balance, and but you always have to remember that every resident, when they call, deserves the same level of attention that you gave the previous resident that called, and always return phone calls. And it's like there's this whole big thing, and it's just like I said, people just want to be acknowledged that they've been heard, and they want you to show them that you've actually are carrying and moving through. And if you can only move the football, a little bit, they appreciate the fact that you let them know that I've gotten here.
Exactly, that they know that they're being listened to, and then that's not only great for the coordinator and for you, but also for the mayor. And that's what Mayor Walsh really wants. He wants people to be involved. He wants people to be calling and giving their concerns. He's done great things in the 7 months that he's been in office so far, I think. I saw him speak about Boston Public Schools at an event at Bank of America, and I was so impressed with how he literally had note cards, but he did not look at them, and he was blasting out facts and figures.
He's hyper engaged.
Yeah.
It's great, and like you said, working for the previous mayor and now working for the current mayor, you just have two men who are just so engaged in the community, and people thought, well, how is he going to be? And you just see him. He is just quick, and I come to him and I say, Mayor, we have this issue. Oh, did you talk to this one? And he knows even down to the little neighborhood issues, and it's just, for me, it's just exciting, and that was one of the reasons why I was happy when he asked me to come back. I jumped at the moment to do it, and
yes,
so
indeed.
it was just, it's been a lot of fun so far.
Absolutely. You guys also do a lot of projects in the communities. Boston Shines is one of them. The Civic Academy. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you're doing to get out in the communities and promoting diversity too in different neighborhoods. Yeah, so we had our first successful Civic Academy. We went towards the Civic Academy is our way to kind of engage and increase access and transparency in government. It's like one of our major pushes. So we have a survey up on the Neighborhood Services website for individuals to click on, and it's kind of for us to get feedback on what do you want to learn. Do you want to learn about how to do a dog park? We'll teach you. We'll teach you the process. It's going to be long, but we'll teach you the process. Or how do you get the permits for a block party? Or how do you get a permit for your deck? So we want you to take the survey and tell us some of the stuff that you want the city to teach. But we're also saying, how do you want to be taught? Would you like us to do YouTube videos? Would you like us to do the in-person trainings? Would you like leaflets? So it's this completely organic thing that we're doing right now. But the first one was about social media. And so we reached out to all the current neighborhood associations who are active residents who are engaged. And on a beautiful Saturday in July, we had 88 people who showed up at District Hall. We were completely, it was a test. It was the very first one, and we wanted to test it out and see what the level of excitement was. And we had 88 people who came and stayed for 2 hours and learned how to use Twitter and all the other social media. Did Lindsay do that?
Yes.
See, and Lindsay is phenomenal.
Her presentation is just amazing, and it's we're actually we're sending them all a copy of the presentation because they've all now since called us and said, can we get a copy of that?
That's awesome, and she's great. So.
Oh no, she's definitely, and when she speaks, she has that passion about social media, and you kind of get excited yourself. So, and the mayor came, and he spoke to the crowd, and it was just an impressive day. And like I said, it was a beautiful Saturday in July. And we always, as planners, you always get a little nervous about the level of engagement in the middle of the summer. And we just wanted to test the first one, and it was a big success. So now we're kind of looking back at what we did, and we're trying to look at the ideas that residents gave us and see what the next one. But we will be doing another Civic Academy soon. How
can people find out about them? Give the website and also the main number for neighborhood services.
You can go to the neighborhood service website, which is cityofboston.gov/neighborhoods, and on there's a link to our main site that has the questionnaire, but also, like I said, that is the main portal for everything. And you'll see on your left-hand side, it lists all the neighborhoods. So you can click on it, and it'll give you more information about your specific neighborhood. And also, our phone number is 617-635-3485. And feel free to call. You can get a hold of me. I return every phone call, every email I get. I'm very, very open and accessible.
You've moved offices, though. You used to be in 708.
We're in 805 now. We moved upstairs. It was better for the life. We spent a lot of time in licensing and zoning hearings, and they're both on the 8th floor. So it was just it was a better way for us to be up on the 8th floor when the residents are coming in and out, handling those two commissions.
That's great. Jerome, I want to thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm always excited to talk about this.
So fast. I wish we had a whole hour.
I have some more stuff I was going to talk about, but it works out.
We'll have you back, though, and then you can talk about that then.
Let me know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for us here tonight. We will see you next time. Good night.